This is Heaven is Real, but So is Hell. Join us as we journey through the extraordinary life of Vassula Rydén and her supernatural encounters with the divine realm.
Chapter 16. The Narrow Path. When you work for peace, you will be persecuted. I am not a bigot, but I was accused of being one. I am not a liar, yet I was accused of pretending to hear God's voice. I still have my wits about me, if I may say so, yet I was treated as a lunatic. I have no intention of undermining the Orthodox Church to which I belong. Yet, an Orthodox monk accused me of being a Trojan horse paid by the Pope to lure the poor Orthodox into becoming Roman Catholics. People have written articles asking for my church to excommunicate me. Some have even spread false rumors that I've already been excommunicated. I've even received death threats in 3 different countries. The Lord reminds us that the path that leads to eternal life is narrow, filled with trials. One day, I really felt tired and worn out from all the trials that seemed to accumulate on me. So knowing that Jesus holds infinite power in his hands, and that he is able to sort out things and smoothen up my way, and like so many people, I went and complained to him. He replied,
"Grace does not go without suffering. Oh, what will I not do to my closest ones, to my dearest friends?"
September 25, 1992. I then said, "Then allow me to take the words of Saint Teresa of Avila and tell you, no wonder you have so few friends." Jesus, undisturbed, replied,
"All men are weak. Nevertheless, I will reply to your comment and tell you, if your soul only knew what I am offering and doing to you, you would have been the one to ask me for more trials, sufferings, crosses, the lot. I discipline those I love, so do not object to what seems good to me."
And another time he added,
"I, the Lord, am showing you the steps I have taken from my passion. Since you are serving me, you must follow me. What do you want me to say? Follow me, but not in my footprints? This cannot be. Whosoever serves me will follow in my blood-stained footsteps."
June 3, 1993. Out of our sacrifices and trials, the Lord derives great achievements for ourselves, for the others, and the Church. The messages have thus continued to spread throughout the world, obtaining their victory. Many souls have been transformed into new apostles to join the race in this spiritual battle. These apostles have derived immense blessings and extraordinary favors from God. They have become part of a divine plan to reach everyone, even for the worst sinners, with peace, love, and sanctity, so that the Church may be revived and have the power to overcome the evil that attacks it. The Lord commanded,
"Serve my house, so that it recovers its vigor, by reminding it that my presence lights up any darkness. Serve my house and speak in my name. so that I, in my transcendent love, may continue to pour my blessings on this generation.
October 20, 1998. We must learn that sacrificial love counts in God's eyes. Fidelity to the Spirit of God requires giving up our own will, dying to ourselves, and putting God first in our life. God is a plus in our lives, not a minus. I have had to learn this lesson myself. I've had to follow God's orders, trusting Him, and trusting that He would provide all the necessary resources of His wisdom, His support, and the tenderness of His love. Unity is my mission, but to accomplish God's will, the largest of the churches, the Roman Catholic Church, would have to play a central role. The sudden appearance of a revelation coming from God usually unsettles people. My work has been on the Vatican's radar for many years. They have issued a notification calling the messages into question, but I had yet to communicate directly with them. They had not consulted with me, nor had they deeply studied my case, as their canon law indicates what should be done in situations like mine. Christ Himself had given His disciples guidance for how to discern a true prophet from a false one. He said that a true prophet, like a good tree, will bear good fruit, meaning that the person's messages and mission will have a positive effect in people's spiritual lives, bringing them closer to God. It takes years or even decades to see what the long-term fruit of a person's mission will be. But eventually, it becomes clear whether the mission is bringing good fruit or bad. This is why the Church often conducts years of investigation before passing judgment on mystical happenings such as mine. Time is racing by and we are running out of time, I told one of my priest friends. And if the world does not wake up from its lethargy and repent, all the evil coming from the earth will sooner or later fall upon us. So very few listen. The Lord wants His mystical body united. He keeps saying to His shepherds that He does not want them to be as administrators running His church, but as shepherds who care for their flock, but they do not listen. And now this notification. The earth is challenging God's justice and provoking Him. Even nature is rebelling against us. I picked up to read out to him part of a message that God gave on April 15, 1996. The Lord said,
I have kept silent and have shut my eyes so far. I have drawn back many times my hand from falling upon you, generation. And so many times I have receded my decisions to redress you by fire. Soon my voice will be heard, saying, enough, enough is enough. The earth will be rent, and those who rebelled against me will see my hand falling on them. But the vessels of my Son I will uphold. I will come in a tempest of fire. For some, this will come as a blessing. But for those who never feared me, that day they will learn to fear me.
The priest sighed and then said, Are you surprised? History is being repeated. How many times in history have policies of prudence been ignored and canon laws broken? The rigidity of any organization acting in this way does not reveal its strength, but its frailty. Then the character of his prophet lies in the capacity to be as inflexible as a church, but alone against all, to witness that only God gives the prophet the strength to resist man. Yet, in spite of growing obstacles, Christ's voice would be constantly encouraging me not to fear, but to continue spreading his word to a dying world. When I felt that nothing was moving and showed my impatience, he tried to reason with me and said,
I am sending you precisely for this reason. I am sending you to the nations to declare that my word is alive. So stand your ground and do not waver or fear. I am your shield. Your race is not over.
April 16, 1993. Then, on August 12, 1998, while I was in Rhodes, Jesus surprised me and said,
I am sending you on a country where you would stretch your shoots beyond the sea. I will send you to them so that the olive tree once more produces its olives, and the vine its fruit. My Vassula, I tell you, at the favorable time I will send you to them, and you will show yourself.
The footnote reads, Italy. I knew Jesus was talking about Rome, but I had no idea how I would get there and show myself to them, as Jesus had said a few weeks before. Amazingly, not long after this message, my husband told me he was offered a new job. Where? I asked. Rome, he replied, with a contract for 6 years. Once again, the Lord was arranging things. All I needed to do was cooperate with his plan. Before making the move to Rome, while still living in Switzerland, I received a phone call from a Swiss priest by the name of Father Damien. He told me that he had read a book defending me, and that after reading it, he felt in his heart that he should do something to help me. He asked what he could do, and I suggested he could pray for me. He asked me if I had ever met Cardinal Cassidy, who was the head of the Pontifical Office of Christian Unity at the Vatican. No, I haven't, I replied. I think he's not in favor of my work. Well, said the priest, he must have been misinformed about you. He's a good friend of mine. Would you like to meet him if I arrange an appointment? Well, yes, of course, if he is willing to meet me. Soon after, Father Damien went to Rome, and when he returned, he told me that Cardinal Cassidy preferred that I first meet with Monsignor Fortino, who worked in his office, and he gave me his phone number. As it was summertime, I was just leaving for a holiday in Rhodes. Upon my arrival there, I dug into my purse and felt something odd. As I pulled out my hand, I saw that it was covered with a thin red laterite sort of sand. I looked in my purse, and to my great amazement, I saw a mass of cocoons made of the same red substance, some of them broken, and hundreds of small, black dead spiders scattered throughout, with the exception of one, which was much bigger, probably the mother. I knew right away that this was a satanic manifestation. My purse had never left my hand from the moment I left Switzerland until I arrived in Rhodes, and I was certain that no hand could have put the cocoons in my handbag. I suspected witchcraft, black magic, because it had simply manifested itself out of nowhere. This was later confirmed by a renowned exorcist who said that he believed it was an evil manifestation done by someone who worked with Satan and against me. My friends who witnessed this were quite shaken. I prayed over the purse rebuking the devil through the power of Jesus, and then emptied out the cocoons, dust and all the spiders into the trash bin. I never used that handbag again, and a month later I saw that this black leather handbag had turned greenish and looked worn out. I could tell that Satan was very displeased that the Vatican doors were opening to me, and that whatever misunderstandings were still hanging as a thick black cloud in there at the Vatican could soon be clarified. The next day, I called the Vatican to speak to Monsignor Fortino in Rome. I was wondering how our conversation would turn out. Monsignor Fortino himself picked up the phone, and after introducing myself, I said that I had been asked to phone him. To my surprise, although he was Bulgarian, he spoke to me in Greek. He was very friendly. We set a date to meet when I would be in Rome. It seemed as if Christ was making my narrow path easy, I thought. God has his time and his agenda. Within a week after moving to Rome, I found myself parked just outside Monsignor Fortino's office at the Vatican. His office was in a very old building, typical of the Vatican architecture, and stood out just a few meters from the great Basilica of St. Peter's. I approached the doorman and gave him the details of my appointment. He ushered me to an old-fashioned wooden elevator that creaked its way up to the second floor, where I rang the bell at the Unity office suite. Another doorman answered the bell and invited me to wait in a small sitting room. Almost immediately, Monsignor Fortino came, greeted me with a very warm smile. He was short and stout. He asked me to follow him, and as we walked, he gave me a short history of every icon we passed on our way to the official meeting hall. Finally, we entered the hall and sat at a huge oblong table used for official Vatican business. Monsignor Fortino was known to be a very humble and good man, reachable and friendly. He was the type of person who immediately makes you feel at ease. His first words, spoken with humor, were, "Your name has made a lot of noise here in the Vatican." I replied, "Oh, good, finally." I might have sounded impertinent, but I couldn't resist feeling happy, because this is where the Lord had wanted me to be, and somehow, through His grace, it had come to pass. I could now tell those in the Vatican the truth and clarify what the messages are all about, and tell them what the Lord was asking. This was the fulfillment of Jesus' words to me, that I would be sent to the eternal city, and He would guide me to those who were questioning my mission. We had an interesting dialogue, and I could see that Monsignor Fortino was open to the messages. To my surprise, he had even read some of them. Our conversation was very friendly, and just before I left, he said, "Vassula, the doors of this office will always remain open for you. You may come in any time you wish and talk to me. I want to make your life easier." I felt that he was fully aware of all the persecutions that were coming against me. With this invitation, I used to drop in the Unity office quite often, informing Monsignor Fortino of the latest happenings of my mission. One day, he finally arranged a meeting with Cardinal Cassidy, the boss of that office. The day I went to meet him, I rang the bell at the Unity office, and Monsignor Fortino came out to greet me. Apologetically, he said, "I am so sorry, but Cardinal Cassidy had an appointment with his doctor. But come in, he will be back soon." He led me to a small sitting room. After half an hour, the door opened, and in came Cardinal Cassidy. I greeted him and noticed that he avoided looking at me eye to eye. I started to introduce myself more thoroughly, but he abruptly stopped me and said, "Just come to the facts. I have no time." I replied, "I wanted to see you because I am dealing with your people, meaning Catholics." I said these words to make him look at me, and he did. I continued, "I'm glad to tell you all about my calling," and I told him about my mission. I emphasized the ecumenical pilgrimages and how all the clergy from different church denominations were asking forgiveness from one another, and how they were gathering together to pray around one altar. Suddenly, he turned angry and said, "With these sorts of performances, you are harming our progress in unity." I was shocked. Raising my voice, I said, "What is your aim for unity? Isn't it to be reconciled and sharing around one altar?" "Yes, but not yet, not just like that," he replied. But I insisted, "Unity is easy when there is love." He got up and said, "I must go now." I remained calm and said, "Next time you have a dialogue of unity in your office, I would like to be there too." This was of course far-fetched, and I knew it. He replied, "Deal with Monsignor Fortino. He is a good advocate for you," and then left the room. I went home and wrote him a letter in which I added a paragraph from the messages, quoting Christ's request for unity in the Church. I told the Cardinal that I was very disappointed with the way he received me. In the meantime, Monsignor Fortino was dying to know what happened, and he called me. When I recounted the meeting, he was quite disappointed and said, "It is obvious he has been influenced by the negative reports. Don't worry, I will talk to him." A week later, Monsignor Fortino called me back and said, "Vassula, everything is clear now. Cardinal Cassidy is waiting to see you any time." A short time later, a Greek Orthodox archimandrite was visiting me in Rome and wanted to meet Cardinal Cassidy. I called the Unity office and arranged to drive him there. When I saw the Cardinal this time, he was completely lovable. I can't think of a better word. He seemed to have a new opinion of me this time. He invited me to join them in the meeting, but I declined, saying this was not a meeting for me, and I went to wait in another room. Later, they took a picture, and I purposely stayed out of the picture, so the Cardinal wouldn't think I wanted to use a picture with him to promote myself. As we left, we were all in good spirits. I was happy to have this new rapport with Cardinal Cassidy. My thoughts went back to those days in Bangladesh when my angel first called me, and I reflected on how things had developed since then. It was a difficult, narrow path, but I did not fear, for near me, holding my hand, was Jesus. Going along that narrow path, the Lord had achieved so many triumphs, so many conversions of people's hearts and souls. Now, God had arranged for his messages to reach the authorities of his church in Rome, in the very office where the church works for the Christian unity, which Christ himself was asking for in the messages. I was overjoyed. But my joy did not last long. with each step of progress in my mission, new trials assailed me. No sooner were these Vatican connections being made than all kinds of personal problems started manifesting. My first cousin's son suddenly died while driving his motorbike on safari in the African desert. My mother lost her sight, was confined to a wheelchair, and had to be placed in a nursing home. From that time on, I would travel once a month from Rome to Switzerland to spend time with her and bring her joy in her suffering. At the same time, my older sister and her husband both became very ill with cancer. The doctors had to operate on my sister and take away her stomach. She then underwent chemotherapy treatments, and her health slowly melted away until 4 years later, both she and her husband died within 3 days of each other. It was devastating to watch them suffer this way, and due to my mother's sickness, we never told her they had died, as we knew it would cause her even more suffering. During this same period, my oldest son, Jan, came down with a fever, and just 2 days after his marriage, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. He too had to undergo chemotherapy. It was so painful that it caused him to cry like a baby and require calming pills. One day, when he was really depressed, he called me in tears and said in desperation, "I am your son. How is it that God allows this to happen to me when you are working so hard for Him?" I was torn inside, but all I could do was continue trusting in God. So day by day, I prayed for Jan and wondered what would happen next. Would the Lord take him from me? Would I be asked to accept that cross? The Lord had not revealed the answer to me until, finally, one day, while I was on the phone with Jan, I heard the most wonderful words a mother could ever hear. The good Lord whispered to me and said, "Your son will be all right again." I was elated and felt like Mary must have felt when she knew that her son Jesus would rise again. The Lord kept His word, and my son recovered. But just a few months later, my younger sister Helen, who lived in Switzerland, called me and said, "Mother's not eating or drinking. She may be dying." I left Rome for Switzerland at once. When I arrived, my mother was emaciated and her eyes were closed. I spoke to her, but she did not recognize me and did not answer. She had completely disconnected from my sister and me. After some days with her, I had to leave for India for a mission trip that had been planned months before. When the time came to leave my mother's room, it was the most painful and saddest moment of my life. With a heavy heart, I looked at her, and not knowing if I'd see her again, I slowly walked out into the corridor. My heart was so heavy that no tears welled up, but my whole body was aching. I could not think or see in front of me anymore. I tried hard to focus on the fact that she would soon be with the Lord, but all I could feel was the pain of being separated from the one who had brought me into this world, the one who had raised me, protected me, and prayed for me through my whole life. As I flew on the plane back to Rome and then to India, I reflected on how much my life had changed from those days of my carefree youth. The Lord had given me so much, but the narrow path to heaven required great sacrifices as well. 4 days later, my sister called me in India to say our mother had passed away. Then, just a year after my mother's death, my brother suddenly died. I began to wonder if anyone in my family would remain alive. The Greek Orthodox priest who presided at my brother's funeral voiced the same concern as he mumbled, "Enough is enough. When will all this stop?" I connected all these mishaps to the witchcraft of the cocoons and the dead spiders. These Satanists who aimed at my family and at me were using Satan's powers and had almost taken my eldest son away. Our Lord, however, did not allow the devil to go that far. It was extremely difficult to lose my brother, my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, and my cousin, and to watch my own son almost die. Yet, all I could do was to pray and trust in God. I could not turn my back on God or on the mission He had given me. I had to believe He was in control, and He knew what was best for all of us. This is a choice we all have when we face our crosses in life. We can reject them and curse God, or we can accept them and praise God. Our response can't change the crosses. I have learned about the value of the cross from Jesus' own words. Sometimes He gives us His cross to sanctify us and to lead us into prayer, and to bring us to a closer union with Him. Whatever our cross may be, God's reasons are always good. Along with all these family trials, the trials coming from outside increased as well. Those who were opposed to my mission were enraged that I now had access to the Unity Office at the Vatican and could go there any time. So they increased their slander and attacks against me, even contacting the Vatican to persuade them to turn against me. This caused me a great deal of distress. I couldn't understand why people who say that they work for unity would oppose those who actually gather the churches together, pray, and work for a unity in diversity. Why do they carry this malice in their heart? Can't they see God's hand at work? I asked my husband. What more will these people say? Again, I remembered the words of the Father when He said that they would hound me like game, rating me at a high reward for the one who will destroy me. The Lord reminds us all, though. November 11, 1998. Despite the voices reaching the Vatican with opposition toward me, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who was the Vatican's prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith and would later become Pope Benedict XVI in the year 2005, decided to open a dialogue with me. He asked that I write my answers to 5 questions in order to get clarification on the issues which had been raised in the Vatican's original notification that had announced concerns about my work. My hope was that by providing these answers, the Vatican might modify their notification or nullify it altogether. After answering the Cardinal's 5 questions, I was told that he was pleased. When asked about the investigation, I was informed that his answer was "Tutto è positivo," meaning all is positive. With this good news, I asked for a private audience with Cardinal Ratzinger, who had once said that he would only meet me when the questions raised in the notification were satisfactorily answered. As this had now been achieved, I was granted a meeting with him in the year 2004. When I arrived, he led me to a very distinguished sitting room and said to me in French, "Finalement," meaning finally. This meant a lot to me, and I praised the Lord, thinking, all that is happening shows the power and the authority of Jesus Christ. I would never have imagined that one day God would guide me into the heart of the Vatican, and that I would be speaking with a future Pope about matters concerning the Church. As Cardinal Ratzinger and I spoke, his simplicity and humility impressed me. Twice during the course of our meeting, he said, "The Church sometimes makes mistakes, but we ask God to forgive us." I offered him the book True Life in God, which contained the messages in it, and showed him that the new edition of the book now included my answers to the 5 questions, which he had requested I do. He said, "Good, everybody should read this dialogue to find the truth in its light." As a result of this meeting with Cardinal Ratzinger, many of my detractors were silenced and eclipsed for a while. None of them admitted their mistake, though, nor did they rejoice at this positive result. On the contrary, they were heard saying, "This is the apostasy," meaning that the Vatican had apostatized. Before, the same people used to trumpet out loud, "Rome has spoken," and everybody trembled, taking it in the same way as if they were told God has spoken. Now that it does not suit them, they say, "Rome has apostatized." However, many thousands of people worldwide who believed in the messages, including many priests, were celebrating Rome's discernment and change in attitude. In just 2 weeks' time, the period of my husband's work in Rome was coming to an end, and it would be time for us to leave. Before my departure, however, Monsignor Fortino made an appointment for me with Cardinal Casper, who had replaced his old boss, Cardinal Cassidy. I found him to be a very cheerful man. I had no doubt the meeting had been arranged by our Lord to pass on his request that the churches work together to unify the date of Easter. For over 1,000 years, Easter has been celebrated on a different date by the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church, though occasionally those dates overlap. Jesus had told me many times that this discrepancy was symptomatic of the Church's disunity and was greatly weakening the Church's power in the world. I explained this message to Cardinal Casper. I told him that Jesus promised that if the churches would establish one date for Easter, the Lord would do the rest. He would restore the unity between the churches in a way that we could never do on our own, and this would bring peace to the whole world. The Lord wants you to bring the Catholic Church to join the Orthodox Church and celebrate Easter together, I told the Cardinal. Since his office was responsible for building unity between the churches, He was the perfect person to hear this message. He stood up and, admiring an icon of the resurrected Christ that I had brought him, smiled and said, "But you have the wrong date." I stared at him, and on behalf of my Greek Orthodox Church, I said, "But so do you." He remained silent, and I went on to say, "Look, Your Eminence, even so, the date does not matter as much as our celebrating this feast together, as we should. This is what Christ wants us to do, and if we do that, the Lord has promised that He will do the rest and unite us completely." He reflected a moment before saying, "I will bring what you suggested to the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II." I got up, thanked him, and left. The Lord was triumphant. He had opened the door to deliver the messages to the right people. And in 2005, just a short time after my meetings with Cardinal Ratzinger and Cardinal Casper, Pope John Paul II passed away, and Cardinal Ratzinger was elected Pope. It seemed as if everything was moving in the right direction, but more trials remained ahead. Once Cardinal Ratzinger became Pope Benedict XVI, Cardinal William Levada became the prefect for the Council for the Doctrine of the Faith, CDF. Despite the answers I had offered to the 5 questions, which were now printed in my book, Cardinal Levada decided to send out a letter to all the Catholic bishops of the world in 2007, reiterating the Vatican's notification of 1995, which seemed to contradict the positive rapport I had built with the CDF. As of the writing of this book, the situation with the Catholic Church is still in flux, as it is with my own Greek Orthodox Church. In some areas, I am harshly rejected by the church leaders, yet, in many other areas, I continue to be supported by bishops, priests, theologians, and nuns who read the messages, write me letters, attend prayer meetings, and join our pilgrimages to build unity between the churches. As for those who opposed my mission, I try not to lose the peace that Christ has given me. I know God was asking me to have a spirit of forgiveness, love, and compassion toward them. Not long ago, God gave me a dream. This was one of the most striking visions I have ever had. I found myself in a courtyard, sitting on a bench in front of the entrance to a huge, beautiful cathedral. It seemed as though I was living there, but also as though I belonged there and guarding it, for I was holding a couple of keys to the cathedral's front gate. My spirit was in a state of such total mental peace and stillness that nothing mattered to me anymore. I was enjoying the serenity that surrounded me, while God was resting in me, and I in Him. All past sufferings or joys, all powerful events or turmoil that had taken place in my life seemed to be like nothing anymore. They seemed to have lost their mark on me. Shrouded by tranquility of mind, I felt invulnerable and free of the world. A feeling of equanimity had invested me, a feeling of not belonging to anyone or anything. I felt free from all people, whether they were enemies or friends, free from polemics or threats. free from becoming exhilarated in joy, or from becoming desolate in sadness, free from death. In short, nothing mattered to me anymore, nothing impressed me anymore, for I was God's, and God was mine. While in this tranquil state, enwrapped in this spirit, I saw 5 cardinals hurriedly approaching the cathedral, one of whom I recognized as Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI. They reached the gate of the cathedral and intended to go in. I watched as Cardinal Ratzinger tried to open the cathedral gate with a key. It did not fit, so he tried other keys, one key after the other, but none of them seemed to fit. All 5 cardinals looked perplexed. Without a sound, I stood up and walked slowly over to them without looking at them, while at the same time I could feel their eyes on me. I knew that they were wondering what I was doing there. I placed one of the keys I had in the keyhole without difficulty and clicked open the gate for them. From this vision, I understood that the leaders of the Church are not listening to Christ's message that can lead them to unity. The restoration of mutual love and humility are missing. That is the right key that will enable them to see the truth in a totally different light and achieve unity. And how much does the Lord Jesus know of the differences between the churches? Yet he wants them to change their way of approaching one another. Christ showed them that all of them should bend and use the key of humility and love, none other. Jesus says,
I have never ceased appointing prophets, setting them in the way of the truth for my salvific plan. I bring them to fulfill their noble vows that had risen to their lips at our divine, enamored encounter. Today you will recognize them by the zeal they have for my house that dresses them, a zeal that devours them. They will not hide their face from trouble, but they will endure with peace all the trials, and their hearts shall not be broken but sanctified, nor will they break their vow of fidelity of sharing my cross. So if you happen to notice their wounds and you ask them, who has made those wounds on you? They will all tell you, I have offered my back to atone for you. These wounds you see, I have received with savagery in the house of my master's friends. It is because I have been telling them the truth that they have made me an enemy and treated me as such. But it does not matter, and I give no attention to my wounds, because what is important to me is to know about the cross, the instrument of our redemption, the cross of our Redeemer. Obedience to God comes before obedience to men, say the Scriptures. And so I have obeyed and followed the heavenly instructions given to me.
April 28, 2000. Whenever those voices of opposition seem to get the better of me, God has always sent voices of people to support me. After long mission trips around the world, I would often return home exhausted and depleted. At such times, the love of my family was just what I needed. I remember how my son, Fabian, would come to me and say, "You look tired, Mom. Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay," I would reply. Not convinced, he would say, "Look, for 3 days I will take over the kitchen. I will cook and clean up. So what would you like to have today? Chicken and potatoes in the oven or spaghetti bolognese?" I would choose one of them, and he would not allow me to enter the kitchen or even pick up my cup to take it to the kitchen. He was only 13, but he too was growing to become a small apostle. Already he had shared what he knew of the messages with his best friends, and being youngsters, they were interested in asking me many questions, which I always enjoyed answering. Never become discouraged, I have tried to remind myself and others, because at the end of the tunnel there will be light. Persevere, never lose hope, and never let go of our Redeemer's sleeve. Cling to him. There is always an Easter that follows Good Friday for those who believe. Always, it is God's promise to us, and God keeps his promises.
I have invited you to my banquet, and through you, many others. My pillar, supporting my cross of unity, radiate the light of knowledge of my glory. Radiate in this darkness the light of my munificence, and do not fear. I have poured out anointed oil in your mouth, so that you may speak for me. Be my chantress, always of good cheer. Sing to this generation by traveling round the world, relying on my grace. When you speak, my love, keep always to the point. Yes, repeat all my sayings, but in few words. Set the jewels I have given you in each heart. Let everyone know that my conversations are sweetness itself. I am with you.
August 29, 1998. Only through God can we create a world of peace. Jesus said to everyone,
I will remind my children that my compassion does not go by unmoved, for I am Father to them. I will make their hearts sing for me, and they will realize that outside my sanctuary, their table is empty. They will understand that outside my sanctuary, they will stifle with sorrow and burdens. Outside my arms, they will face destruction and death.
October 6, 1993.
Tell them that the Prince of Peace, this God surrounded by cherubim, laid aside his crown and royal vestments to patrol the world barefoot and wearing sackcloth to manifest his grief. As I have treated you kindly and allotted you a place in my sacred heart, so will I treat the rest of my children, and I will complete their journey with them.
October 11, 1993.
You just listened to Heaven is Real, but So is Hell. Join us tomorrow for a new episode.